This is our debut presentation looking at the differences between Lawson LSF and the new FSM 11, specifically as they relate to financials. We have Mr. Chris Gordon here, Mr. Zach Custodio, and with that I give you Chris and Zach.
Thanks very much, Keith. And Zach and I are very happy to be here. We're going to spend the next half hour or so going through the differences in FSM compared back to version 10. So all the cool things that you can expect to see in FSM, whether that's navigation, whether that's some new forms or pages out there that we can leverage. So we'll get into that over the next half hour.
So a little bit about RPI. This is a picture from Infor this year. I think Chris is making an appearance in the back row there. We are an Infor Alliance partner, Cloud Suite specialized, headquartered and founded here in Baltimore in 1999, and we have a nationwide practice of consultants spanning all aspects of the Infor Lawson solution.
All right, so quick overview of what we're going to look at over this presentation. A lot of things. So we're going to look at what FSM is, look at navigation, explain how these role-based templates more or less come to you as a user of FSM. We'll look at some of the differences that you can see within each suite. We go through GL, AP, billing, and asset management, just pointing out some of the big highlights within those suites of some of those differences. APIA's integration within the AP suite, and landing pages, widgets, and effective dating. And last but not least, auditing. So auditing's throughout the entire system, and Zach's going to talk a little bit more about auditing later on. But everything revolves around the sun. Everything revolves around Cloud Suite FSM, and these are kind of the main talking points that we're going to look at.
So starting off, what is FSM? It's Cloud Suite Finance and Supply Management. That's what the FSM stems from. And it's essentially version 11. A lot of you are probably on version 10 right now, and it's going to be the next step. Everything is landmark based, so they're getting away from COBOL, and this is really going to allow them to create some enhancements and differences that we're going to cover throughout the presentation. So here's a just kind of general charts of the financials and the supply chain, or the supply management. You'll see that some of the naming is a little bit different. Asset accounting and lease accounting replaced asset management, lease management. Project ledger is replacing activities.
So there's a lot of everything you currently have in version 10 is there. It might be renamed. But you're also getting a lot more. So close management used to be, or it was, it's a landmark application that you can have in version 10, but in version 11 or FSM, it comes standard with your package. Same thing with APIA, with cash and treasury management, close and reconciliation management. So a lot of those landmark apps that before weren't really included in the core solution are now included. But you don't really. Nothing is not there anymore, right? So GL's there, it's under this global ledger name. Asset management's there, it's under this asset accounting name. Activities is there, it's under the project ledger name. So nothing's gone, there's just more there to use.
Thank you. So some of the standout differences. Navigation is going to be the first thing you notice. It is very different from version 10. You might have went from version 9 to version 10, and there were some differences, but overall had the same look and feel. But this is going to have a completely different navigation that we're going to cover a lot throughout the next couple slides. It's going to be role-based, and there's landing pages. So when you log in, you're going to have a role, or at least one role, and then each role is going to have a landing page. We're going to get into those, but it's a customizable home page that'll really allow you to stay more organized and hopefully save you some time. There's effective dating and auditing. So effective dating is a new feature that we're pretty excited about, and it'll allow you to create a date on when a transaction or an action that you are completing within the system when it actually takes place. So you can go through in the end of December and say, I want this to be added as of January 1st. And you can also retroactively date things to go back. Those are, of course, governed through security, so you might not give everybody access to do that, but it is an option. And then auditing, we're going to touch on later, but it's always on. You don't have to turn it on, and it is very simple to use, and it covers a lot of information to really help you.
Basically anything, right?
Yep, pretty much everything. And then the flexibility in the GL structure, Chris is going to get into this, but the GL structure and calendar is a lot more flexible, and it's really going to allow you to tailor the setup to fit your business needs. And then what is similar? So it's still an ERP system. It's a transactional processes, IPA we're going to talk to, but that's definitely still involved. A lot of you might already be using that. And it's web-based. You're going to have a URL. Each data area is going to have its own URL, so you'll have a separate URL for prod and test.
There's a lot of new terminology in FSM, so I think first let's just go through what some of those words are and what they mean. And as we go throughout the rest of the presentation, we're going to use some of these words, so it's just helpful to look at them and define them up front. So in FSM, there's this concept of an enterprise group, and this is a global entity that sits at the top. It's shared by all of your other Infor solutions, so HCM, supply chain. It's the kind of the first setup piece within your FSM. Within that are finance enterprise groups. So specifically within the finance suite, we set up an enterprise group that probably mirrors your main enterprise group. But within that group, you're defining your organization's accounting structure. So you're setting up system accounts, you're setting up your chart of accounts, calendars, and a whole lot more that we'll look at that you're all defining at this enterprise group level. And just a quick visual here of your enterprise group versus your finance enterprise group, and then your accounting entities, which are more or less like your GL companies today. They're editable, so they can be changed to a different label, and you can define those a little bit differently. But they're basically like your companies today. And they're your highest organizational element within your GL, your global ledger. Within your finance structure, you have dimensions. So a dimension is a brand new concept in FSM, similar to an attribute kind of from version 10, but it's more robust. So these user dimensions, you're tagging, first you're saying, what is my user dimension? And it's basically just a way for you to tag any transaction, invoice, journal entry, PO, requisition, with an attribute. That attribute then becomes reportable out of the cube. And you set up as many dimensions as you need, and they're all defined on your enterprise group. A reporting basis combines your ledgers and accounting entities, and they're used to generate your financials using the chart, your calendars, accounting entities, and all those other things that you set up. Your chart is your chart, so very similar concept to current day chart of accounts. What's different is that you can actually have more than one chart. So you might only have one in 9 or 10, but if you need more than one chart in FSM, you can have more than one chart too. Your core ledger is kind of your main ledger. All transactions feed into your core ledger. These are created automatically, and they're assigned back to your reporting basis. But within your core ledger, you can have other ledgers. So you can have as many ledgers as you need, and those are out there to help you meet reporting requirements for your organization. So for example, you have an adjustment ledger, you have an eliminating entries ledger. There's just another way to meet reporting needs for your company.
All right, so back to navigation. Again, this is going to be one of the big changes, big differences. So some of the ways to get around. First, you need to know that their pages now, they're no longer forms. So you're not going to be going to GL90, you're not going to be going to AP20 anymore. There's going to be drop-down menus from the top, and that's how you're going to navigate. You'll see a bunch of pictures of those. There's no more inquire, so there's no inquire button, but before everybody goes into a panic. Everything's in list view, and you can double click on any line item, or you can single click and then click this open folder icon, and the open folder icon, and that's gonna essentially inquire for you. There's also no more back button. It's not built into the software, but you can use the same navigation tools you would if you were browsing through Google or something. So you can hit the back button on your browser, you can hit Alt left arrow, you can right click, click back. You can still do all the same functions as the internet. It's just not built into the actual interface itself. Also, there's no add or change button. So you're no longer gonna have to worry about, should I be adding here, should I be changing? It's gonna be a save button. So whether it's the first time when you're adding it or whether it's the 20th time you've made a change to it, you're always gonna be using the save button, which is gonna be the same as Microsoft Word, where it's the little floppy disk. The Save and New feature is a really nice feature. So that's gonna be the two floppy disks that look like they're overlapping each other. And what this is gonna do is add whatever you're adding now and then erase the page, make it all the fields blank again so that you can start keying in brand new, and you no longer have to do the Control-Shift-K or anything like that. There is a drill around button, as you'll see, at the top of just about every page, and that's always helpful. We all know how helpful drill around can be. So there's a notification at the top. There's no longer a status bar. So when you run a job and you submit something, post something, a little drop down will fade from the top, and it'll say job submitted or invoice added and that kind of thing. And then it'll fade back away, so it'll stay out of your way.
So we don't get that add change complete at the bottom left anymore. That's going to be up top.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And it goes away, gets right back out of your way. And it's the same kind of message. It'll say complete or added, but just no longer at the bottom. Control-Shift-Click is going to give you this box where it says field information here. It's going to be equivalent to your Control-Shift-O in version 9 or version 10. There's a search bar this here on the right. We search for vendor, and it's going to pop up with all the pages that contain vendor in the name. So you can click on any of these lines and it'll bring you to that page as well, instead of having to go through the menu from the top.
So the Control-Shift-Click, similar to the Control-Shift-O, it's telling you some things about that field or whatever you clicked on, right? Mm-hmm. So the business class name is kind of similar to a table in version 9 or version 10, and your form name is the form that you're on. Your payables invoice form, you might relate to an AP20. And then you have your field within there called vendor. So that's the field that we did that Control-Shift-Click on. So the nomenclature, the names of those tables, business classes are changing because we're now on a landmark platform. But the concept is still the same, where you have business class, form name, field, compared to table, form, or field.
Yep, absolutely. So easy bookmarks. If you currently use Mingle, it's going to be very similar to the little star at the top of each page. And all you do is click this little ribbon. It's going to be at the top right. You'll see later in the slideshow as well. But all you do is click that. It'll give you an option to name the page. It'll default to what its page name is, but you can call it anything you want. And then once you click the ribbon again, it'll be there, same as a bookmarks on the internet on any kind of browser. So that's very helpful. Another nice feature is Print Manager is not going to override. So before you would, and the way you run jobs and reports is going to be different as well. So this allows it to not override. Once you run a report, that's there forever, and you can view that report and that report's results. Same with the job. And then you'll see each instance of you running that. It won't override. And
yeah, so that's super helpful, right? You don't have to worry about running the same job twice. You don't have to worry about, did I click the submit button or not, and did it override my previous report? But yeah, that's awesome. So a new job submission just creates a brand new record, doesn't override what was there before.
Mm-hmm. And as we talked about before, different URLs for the different data areas. So you'll have completely different URL for prod versus test.
And then what are we showing up here? This is like a search?
Yeah, this is a search bar. So in the top right, you're going to click the little magnifying glass with the 3 lines, and you can search for just about anything, and it'll give you any results. It gives you a ton if you stay as generic as vendor. Mm-hmm. So this is even a cutoff list of what it provided, but it'll
So
bring
as
you
you're
right to those
typing
pages.
vendor, it's starting to bring
It'll
up
keep-
some things,
yep,
right?
and it'll keep-
Which is way different than version 9 or 10, where in that you could type in vendor and click enter, and it'll bring back a list of any form that had the word vendor in it. But here it's nice. It's a dynamic, refreshing list as you're typing, which I think is really helpful for first-time users.
Yep.
Because if you're going to an invoice form to type in an invoice and you don't have to remember it's AP20, you can always come here and type an invoice and find your invoice entry form.
Yeah, and especially if you're still getting accustomed to the drop-down menus and you didn't save it as a bookmark already, this is definitely a great option to help you get there.
All right, so a snapshot of the roles that we have out there. Within finance, we have staff accountant role that comes prepackaged with what you can and cannot do and get access to. We have roles set up across the board within finance, supply chain, HR. A couple examples we're listing here, CFO, payables manager, payables processor. So each role comes with something a little bit different and allows that user to either see or not see certain things, certain pages.
And then it's going to bring you to, when you sign into your role, it'll bring you into that landing page. So getting into landing pages, it's essentially a home page. So once you log into the role, you can have multiple roles and you'll have a landing page for each one. And it's going to allow business users to tailor content and share their content. You can further define your role with additional widgets, which are going to be the little blocks that make up your landing page. And so there's some prepackaged roles and prepackaged landing pages, but these are very easy to customize. There's a landing page designer built in. You can drag and drop these in different orders, make some bigger, smaller, and really edit what's in the landing page. Here's another view of a landing page. You'll see it's a staff accountant's landing page, and there's journal entries, recurring journal control list, transaction list. They can be able to bottom those. It can acquire some unposted journals, and it really helps you get around. And all of these are dynamic as well. So you can click on this journal entry, the first one, and it'll bring you to that page with you already being inquired on that journal entry. So these are really nice and helps you see everything as a whole, gives you a good overview. And again, cuts down on time where we're navigating between different screens and going back and forth.
Yeah, it's a nice consolidated view of what you need to see. And this is a staff accountant's landing page. So it might be different for a controller versus a CFO.
And so each of these blocks, squares here, are widgets. And they're basically, they're a library of content. So they can pull from FSM 11 reports, Infor BI, external content, which could be either an interface or a website that you frequent. They can also contain process links to actions. So you could have a list of your vendors, and you could actually put a vendor on hold from your homepage from a certain widget that you have designed on your landing page, which is really nice.
Cool.
They can also contain video content, charts, links, just about anything you desire up in there.
All right. So now we're going to get into some of the actual modules, more or less, GL, AM, billing. Starting with GL, we wanted to show you this first drill down basic hierarchy, because we all know that the flowcharts in version 9, version 10 are there, but this is now kind of what that flowchart would look like. Based off of our financials drop down, we have a listing of, in this case, we have access to everything, so we're seeing all the different systems or solutions out there. But from Global Ledger, you can drill down into your setup, processing, reports, budgeting, and utilities. From there, take it another step down. So this is really how you're getting around, or how you could get around to the forms. And notice there's no form number, right? It's just journals. You're clicking on journals. That's going to take you to that GL40 form where you're entering your journal.
I have a question here that I'm going to go ahead and answer as well. It's, can the prepackaged security roles be modified easily to match the roles we currently use in LS10? And can we add our own roles? Questions related to users' access to page, as well as the functions that they have. And the answer is absolutely. That's what you use Configuration Console for. So what Infor is trying to do is they're trying to make it easy, saying, for the most part, someone that enters invoices needs to have access to invoice entry and maybe not
Right.
payment processing. So you can modify that and you can make it match what you have today. And you can create new ones as well.
Cool. All right, so the global ledger. Screenshot, we talked a little bit about some of these vocab words a little bit ago. And this is your finance enterprise group setup page. And this is where we're defining our accounting entity, accounts, accounting units, and then all those dimensions, right? All of our user dimensions down here that are separate and apart from your company, accounting unit, and account traditional string. So that traditional GL company, accounting unit, and account could be your dimensions up top within accounting entity, account, and accounting unit. Or they could not be. It all depends on how you want to configure your hierarchy in FSM. Some of these are required, some are not. So we have accounting entity and account as two required fields that Lawson will have grayed out, and you need to have those on every transaction record. But separate and apart from that, we have other fields that we can enter, other dimensions that we can have required or not. And that selection will be made using that checkoff box to the right. You can also change up the order in which those values are displayed on an invoice, for example. So in this case, we have accounting entity at 1, we have account at 3, and project at 4. So that's the order in which you'll see or be able to fill in those values when you're entering an invoice or putting a journal into the system. What's also nice about this is if you look off to the far left, there's no more tabs. Well, there's vertical tabs, but there's not tabs within tabs or buttons within tabs anymore. Everything's nicely laid out, so you're not going to miss something. A lot of times you might be on your company and you're looking for that back post button and it's all the way down at the bottom. Your screen might not be all the way down there. So what Infor has done a good job at in FSM is putting everything you need in an organized fashion. And you'll see that structure off to the left on a lot of these forms that we're going to. All right, so all of those dimensions, or those user dimensions that we're just looking at there, they will drive, they'll go into a cube for reporting purposes. So not only are you tracking transactions with, in this case, a cost center and a grant, but those are all reportable off of the cube. You see our example here, we have accounting unit left blank. So when we're going to enter an invoice or a journal entry, we don't even have an option to put in an accounting unit. So if that's all set up, determined up front, and then whether or not those fields are required or not are also determined too. A couple other things within GL. So there's flexible calendars. A date in version 9 or version 10 was a date within a certain period. Period 1, period 2, period 3. In FSM, you can have multiple calendars. So today's date might be in period 1 in one calendar, but period 12 in a different calendar. So you can have the flexibility there and all that's being driven by reporting. What are your reporting requirements? How do you want to see data lined up? So it's nice that they're giving you that flexibility to alter the, time, basically.
And then, so we kind of hit on the effective dates earlier, but again, you can set things to be effective in the future or retroactively. An example would be requesting an account addition for an as of date. And it's really helpful so you don't have to do everything day of that you want it to take place. As of dating is another thing that we're pretty excited about. So you can go and view an invoice as of a certain date where it's at maybe R&I. If you want to see beginning of last month what R&I was at, you can easily go back and view that. So it's going to be very, very helpful to just backtrack and help troubleshoot. So job submission. Job submission is very different as well. So you're no longer going to GL 190, creating a job, and then submitting the job. You're going to, I think if you get forward, so here we are going to general ledger, processing, journals, down to post journals. So that's how we're going to get to that page. You can go back. And this screen in the bottom right, the scheduled posting, is going to pop up, and this is where you're going to be submitting that. So you put in the entity, the ledger, the system, and the period. You click OK, and it's going to pop up on here for your journal posting results. And notice that it keeps each instance you ran this, and with the timestamp. And when you actually click on the different lines here, the transaction list and the global ledger posting journal list is going to change with that to show what was posted with each running of it.
All right, AP, same idea here with the drill down. This is basically your flow chart within your AP system. The big thing here is APIA is now built in or integrated into your core AP system. So before, if you're on version 10, it's separate, right? It's not built in with your core LSF version 10 AP system. But when you move to version or FSM, this comes with it. So you have full APIA functionality built within AP. You still need to partner with a third party for the receival and scanning and indexing of the invoices. But when it comes to approving, routing, matching, releasing, and paying, all that's going to happen within your APIA system within FSM. So a huge thing there, big bonus, moving to FSM of getting APIA.
So I have a question back to the post journals page. Can that be bookmarked so you don't have to go through the menu every time?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you.
So IPA drives a lot too within FSM, and one of the nice things within AP is that for new vendor additions, there's actually a workflow or a trigger that you can leverage to say, hey, I'm entering this new vendor, I'm releasing that request, and IPA will now route that vendor request to whoever you need before you can use that vendor in AP or PO. So that's a nice little additional control that they've given you in FSM. A screenshot of our AP vendor group. Again, the main thing to point out, everything is on the left. You're not going to miss buttons within buttons or buttons within tabs. Everything's kind of listed, organized off to the left of the form. And list view. So if you're familiar with Smart Office or version 10, list views are all over the place, and they're not stopping in version or in FSM. So here, it's a really sweet way of looking at all of your invoices out there, whether they're unassigned, unsubmitted, pending approval, release, paid. A great place to come and view all of the invoices in your system. You don't now have to worry about going to like an AP90 or an AP90.5 to find that. All of it's kind of a one-stop shop for invoice retrieval. And this is just a universal search functionality basically within that AP system too. All right. Asset management. Again, it's a role-based system, or role-based idea here. We have asset analysts, asset managers, and controllers, viewers, so people that just have inquiry access to AM. All these roles come pre-delivered, but as we saw before, we can change and make adjustments to those. What I wanted to point out here is a consolidated landing page within AM, which is great, right? You come to, this used to be all these different forms, AM 20.2, 20.3, 20.4. But now it's all on one page. And I know we don't have any data here, so you're not seeing anything. But if we have an asset, we can click on our asset number, look at depreciation, look at our books, look at the items, look at any adjustments or transfers that we've done to the asset, all on one form, which I think is a really nice tool.
And then finally, we're getting into billing. So here we are, the same kind of drop down, same feel. And there's going to be a new billing and receivables portal. So it's going to be a web-based portal, and it's going to be similar to customer self-service. So this is going to allow customers to log in, view invoices, view payments, print invoices, and actually make payments. Any changes that they make, maybe through their account information widget or anything, will still go through an approval process. So they're not going to just be able to change that kind of stuff. They also won't be able to change payment amounts or invoices and that kind of stuff, you can still set up security around that. So here's a visual of the home page for the portal that they would see. At the top, they'll see the inbox and the messaging system where you can communicate with them. And then below is the widgets that we're going to go through. So account information widget, this is where they can edit their account information, help you stay up to date. And also for your viewing purposes, there is a invoices widget, which you can view all of your invoices, the dates, the due dates, all the necessary information. Payments widget, they can view their payments, make sure that they're there, returns, any returns that they've made, and then any outstanding orders that they have. They can really view all this, and it'll help cut down some phone calls and help them help themselves. And finally, auditing. So there's very easy audit tracking. All you have to do is right click and then click view audit log. So when you right click in a field, this screen will pop up and view audit log is fourth from the bottom. And what that's going to do is bring up this page here, and this is going to be your audit log. So again, you don't need to turn on auditing. It's going to be on everywhere all the time. And this is just a small snippet of the actual audit log. So basically anything you can drill around in a field, it'll track all of that information. So there'll be a bar at the bottom you can scroll. Sometimes it's hundreds of lines. It's very nice and tracks just about everything. All right.
Okay, that's all we have for you guys. I know it was a lot, and I know we're right at a little bit over the 30-minute mark, but do we have any questions?
We do have a question here sort of related about scanning being built in. I think that Infor has an overall direction. They did, I think about a year ago, acquire a data capture company, but as of now, it's still third party. Does the audit log track who has viewed the data on the page or just changes?
I don't think it would. So is the question every time someone looks at the form, is it recognizing it?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to track that.
All right, looks like that's all the questions we have for today. Thank you very much. This was a great presentation.